Welcome to the divine mathematics of the Quran, where faith and logic intertwine, where numbers narrate the story of creation, and where every digit might just be a silent verse of the divine. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Quranic numerical system. The Quran, revealed over 1400 years ago, is not only a spiritual guide, but also a text rich with numerical patterns that have intrigued scholars, mathematicians, and believers alike. This chapter introduces the concept of numerology within Islamic theology, examining its historical context and relevance. The role of numbers in Islamic tradition. In Islam, numbers hold a special place not merely as tools for counting, but as carriers of deeper symbolic meanings. The Quran itself mentions numbers in various contexts: unity, tawhid. The concept of one God, symbolized by the number one, is central to Islamic faith. The five pillars, the foundational acts of worship in Islam, which include the number 5 in their very structure. 7 heavens, mentioned in the Quran, symbolizing completeness and spiritual ascension. 99 names of Allah, each name represents an aspect of the divine, a number significant in Islamic numerology. Historical context of Quranic numerology. The study of numbers in relation to the Quran isn't a new phenomenon. From the early Islamic scholars who pondered over the mathematical structure of the text to contemporary researchers using modern computing to uncover numerical patterns, there's a rich history. Ibn Khaldun, 14th century, discussed the significance of numbers in his work, suggesting that the Quran's structure reflects divine order. Al-Kindi, 9th century, known as the philosopher of the Arabs, explored the philosophical implications of numbers, including in his astrological and cosmological studies. Why numerology in the Quran? The exploration of numerical patterns in the Quran can be seen from multiple perspectives. Spiritual insight. For many believers, these patterns are seen as signs of the Quran's divine origin, enhancing the spiritual experience through a deeper appreciation of its structure. Intellectual curiosity. For scholars and mathematicians, it's an intellectual challenge to decipher what these patterns might signify about the text's composition and its message. Cultural and historical study. Understanding numerology in the Quran also sheds light on how Islamic culture has interpreted and interacted with mathematics over centuries. A new lens on the Quran. This book aims to present a systematic approach to understanding the numerical patterns within the Quran. Discuss the implications of these patterns on both spiritual and intellectual levels. Navigate through the controversies and debates surrounding Quranic numerology. We begin by establishing axioms, foundational statements that are assumed true based on both traditional interpretations and observable patterns. From there, we will explore theorems, statements that can be proven based on these axioms, delving into the mathematical beauty of the Quran while always keeping in mind the text's primary role as a guide for faith and life. This chapter sets the stage for a journey where numbers are not just counted but contemplated, where each digit might reveal a facet of the divine, and where the reader is invited to consider the Quran through a new yet ancient lens of numerical harmony. Chapter 2. Establishing the axioms. In mathematics, axioms are statements taken to be true without proof, serving as the foundation for further logical deductions. In our exploration of the numerical patterns in the Quran, we propose several axioms to establish our theoretical framework. These axioms are derived from both the text of the Quran and scholarly interpretations that have evolved over centuries. Axiom 1. Divine mathematical structure statement. The Quran exhibits a deliberate mathematical structure that transcends mere coincidence, reflecting its divine origin. Explanation. This axiom posits that the numerical patterns within the Quran are not random, but are part of a grand design meant to convey deeper truths or to affirm the text's supernatural origin. Examples include the symmetrical arrangement of verses or the frequency of certain words. Corroboration. Scholars like Rashad Khalifa have highlighted patterns like the frequency of the word God, Allah, appearing a multiple of 19, which they see as evidence of divine authorship. Critics argue this could be coincidental or even a result of selection bias, yet the debate itself underscores the significance of this axiom. Axiom 2. Surah al-Fatiha's significant statement. Surah al-Fatiha, known as the mother of the book, al-Kitab, has a foundational role in the Quran characterized by its specific numerical makeup of 7 verses and 29 words. Explanation. Al-Fatiha is not just the opening chapter, but is recited in every unit of Muslim prayer, symbolizing its prime importance. The numbers associated with it, 7 verses, 29 words, have been analyzed for their potential symbolic or numerical significance. Corroboration. The number 7 in Islamic tradition often symbolizes perfection or completeness, while 29 might be seen in various mathematical operations like concatenation or digit summing, leading to further numerical insights. Axiom 3. Perfect numbers. Statement. The concept of perfect numbers, a number where the sum of its proper divisors equals the number itself, resonates with themes of balance and perfection in the Quran. Explanation. Perfect numbers like 6, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals sign 6, and 28, 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14 equals sign 28, are mentioned here not just for their mathematical uniqueness, but for their symbolic potential. In the Quran, the number 6 is linked to the creation of the universe in 6 days, and 28 might relate to the lunar month or the letters of the Arabic alphabet used in the Quran. Corroboration. While the Quran does not explicitly discuss perfect numbers, the symbolic use of numbers like 6 and 28 in Islamic theology supports this axiom. Their mathematical properties could be seen as reflecting the Quranic themes of balance, perfection, and divine order. Axiom 4. Significance of the number 19 statement. The number 19 holds a special place in the Quran, particularly highlighted in Surah Al-Mudathir, symbolizing the oneness of Allah and His unique attributes. Explanation. The number 19 is explicitly mentioned in the Quran, and its multiples have been observed in various contexts, like the structure of certain chapters or the frequency of words. Corroboration. The most direct reference comes from Surah Al-Mudathir, where the number 19 is associated with the guardians of hell. Rashid Khalifa's work on the code 19 inches has been one of the most controversial, suggesting this number as a key to understanding the Quran's structure, though this is not universally accepted within Islamic scholarship. These axioms lay the groundwork for our theorems, providing a structured way to explore the numerical intricacies of the Quran. They invite us to consider the Quran not only as a text of guidance, but as a marvel of mathematical precision and symbolic depth, urging us to ponder over the possibility of a divine hand in its composition. Chapter 3. The Divine Foundation of Surah Al-Fatiha. In this chapter, we introduce and discuss Theorem 1, which delves into the numerical structure of Surah Al-Fatiha, illustrating its foundational role within the Quranic text through mathematical analysis. Theorem 1. The Divine Foundation of Surah Al-Fatiha. Statement. Surah Al-Fatiha possesses a unique numerical structure that signifies its foundational importance in the Quran. Proof, position, and role. Surah Al-Fatiha is the first chapter of the Quran, universally recited in every prayer cycle or rak'ah, thus establishing its foundational status. Axiom 2. Numerical composition. Al-Fatiha consists of 7 verses and contains 29 words. Axiom 2. Concatenation. By concatenating these numbers, 1, the chapter number 7, the number of verses 29, the number of words, we get 1729. Digit sum. The sum of the digits of 1729, 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9, equals 19, a number significant in Quranic numerology. Axiom 4. Connection to divine oneness. The number 19 is linked to the oneness of Allah, further emphasizing the divine nature of the Quran's structure. Axiom 4. Conclusion. This sequence of numbers and their mathematical manipulation underscores a deliberate design, linking Al-Fatiha's structure to broader Quranic themes of unity and divinity. Justification. The concatenation of 1, 7, and 29 to form 1729, which then sums to 19, is not just a numerical trick, but a potential indicator of a deeper symbolic structure. This method has been used by scholars to highlight patterns that might not be immediately obvious through conventional reading. The number 19, as per Rashid Khalifa's controversial Code 19 inches theory, has been seen by some as a key to unlocking the Quran's mathematical harmony. While this theory isn't unanimously accepted, it does provoke thought on the Quran's numerical architecture. This theorem suggests that Al-Fatiha's numerical properties are not accidental, but are part of a broader message or sign of the Quran's divine origin, enhancing both the spiritual and intellectual engagement with the text. Interpretative considerations. Spiritual reflection. The numerical analysis of Al-Fatiha can deepen one's appreciation for the Quran's intricacies, encouraging contemplation on how even the structure of the text reflects divine qualities like balance and unity. Intellectual engagement. For those interested in the intersection of faith and mathematics, this theorem provides a fascinating case study on how ancient texts might be examined through modern analytical methods. Debate and caution. While this theorem can be intellectually stimulating, it's crucial to approach it with caution, acknowledging that not all Muslims or scholars would agree on the significance of these numbers. The debate around numerology in religious texts is ongoing, with some viewing it as insightful and others as speculative or even distracting from the text's primary messages. In conclusion, Theorem 1 opens up a dialogue about the Quran's structure, inviting believers and scholars alike to consider how the mathematical and the mystical can coexist, enhancing our understanding of the sacred text through a lens that transcends the merely literal. Chapter 4. The interconnectedness of numerical properties. This chapter explores Theorem 2, which focuses on how the number 19 acts as a connective thread across different parts of the Quran, suggesting a deliberate and intricate design. Theorem 2. The interconnectedness of numerical properties statement. The number 19 is derived from multiple sources within the Quran, demonstrating a deliberate interconnectedness of its surahs. Proof, linked to Al-Fatiha. As established in Theorem 1, the numerical properties of Surah Al-Fatiha result in the number 19 through concatenation and digit summing. Musa's dowry in Surah Al-Qasas 28:27. The story of Prophet Moses includes a dowry of 28 dirhams. Here, the chapter number 28 plus the verse number 27 gives 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 7 equals sign 19. Symbolism of oneness. The number 19 is often interpreted as a symbol of the oneness of Allah, a central tenet of Islam, Axiom 4. Multiple occurrences. The number 19 appears or is derived in various other contexts within the Quran, like the number of letters in certain verses or the frequency of specific words. Conclusion. The recurrence of 19 through different narratives and structural elements of the Quran suggests an intentional pattern, weaving a thread of divine unity across the text. Justification. Unity across texts. This theorem showcases how numbers can connect seemingly disparate parts of the Quran, suggesting that the text is not merely a collection of independent stories, but a cohesive whole with underlying numerical harmony. Divine signature. For those who accept numerological interpretations, the consistent appearance of 19 could be seen as a divine signature, reinforcing the unity of God and the divine authorship of the Quran. Intellectual challenge. This theorem invites scholars and believers to engage with the Quran in a way that transcends traditional exegesis, offering a puzzle that spans across the text's structure. Implications and interpretations. Spiritual depth. Discovering these interconnected numerical patterns can deepen one's spiritual connection to the Quran, as it might be seen as a reflection of the divine wisdom and omnipresence. Academic inquiry. From an academic perspective, this theorem encourages further research into the Quran's structure, potentially opening up new avenues for understanding the text's composition and its influence on Islamic thought over centuries. Controversy and debate. While some might view this interconnectedness as a clear sign of the Quran's divine origin, others argue that such patterns could be coincidental or the result of human efforts to find meaning where there might not be any intended. This debate is critical in the scholarly discourse on Quranic numerology, cultural and historical reflection. The study of these patterns also reflects on how Muslims have historically engaged with their sacred text, blending spiritual practice with intellectual exploration. In summary, Theorem 2 is not just about proving a numerical pattern, but about illustrating how one number can link various aspects of the Quran, suggesting a unity in purpose, message, and divine origin. It invites a reflection on how the Quran might be a tapestry woven with both words and numbers, each element contributing to the broader picture of divine revelation. Chapter 5. The significance of perfect numbers. This chapter delves into Theorem 3, exploring how the mathematical concept of perfect numbers resonates with Quranic themes of balance, perfection, and divine harmony. Theorem 3, the significance of perfect numbers. Statement: perfect numbers, such as 6 and 28, are not merely mathematical concepts, but are integrated into the Quranic structure, reflecting balance, perfection, and divine harmony. Proof. Definition of perfect numbers. A perfect number is a positive integer equal to the sum of its proper divisors, Axiom 3. Examples are 6 and 28. The number 6, creation. Narrative: the Quran mentions the creation of the universe in 6 days, linking 6 to the act of creation, Surah Al-Araf 754, among others. Mathematical harmony, as 6 is the first perfect number, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals sign 6, symbolizing balance and completion in creation. The number 28, lunar month. The lunar month, which is approximately 28 days, has symbolic significance in Islam, especially in relation to the Islamic calendar. Arabic alphabet. There are 28 letters in the classical Arabic alphabet used in the Quran, suggesting a link between language, revelation, and perfection. Mathematical harmony: 28 is the second perfect number, 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14 equals sign 28, reinforcing the theme of completeness. Integration with Quranic concepts. Both numbers are woven into the text's structure and theme, suggesting that the Quran's narrative and mathematical properties are in harmony. Conclusion: the presence of these perfect numbers in Quranic contexts points towards an intentional design where mathematics and spirituality are intertwined. Justification: symbol of perfection. Perfect numbers embody the idea of perfection in their mathematical properties, which can be seen as mirroring the divine perfection described in the Quran. Balanced creation. The use of 6 in the creation narrative reflects the Quranic view of a universe created with perfect balance by Allah. Spiritual and linguistic completeness. The association of 28 with the Arabic alphabet used in the Quran might suggest the completeness of divine revelation, where each letter is part of a perfect system of communication from God to humanity. Intellectual appreciation. Exploring these numbers invites believers to appreciate the Quran not only as a spiritual guide, but as a text with layers of meaning that include mathematical beauty, considerations and interpretations. Spiritual insight. This theorem could enhance spiritual understanding by showing how the Quran's message extends beyond words into the realm of numbers, suggesting a divine order in everything. Educational value. It provides an educational bridge between mathematics and theology, potentially inspiring those who are fascinated by both fields to explore Islamic theology through a scientific lens. Scholarly debate. While some scholars might celebrate these connections as evidence of divine design, others might caution against reading too much into numerological patterns, advocating for a focus on the Quran's explicit teachings. Cultural impact. Over time, these interpretations might influence Islamic art, literature, or even modern-day educational approaches in Muslim-majority countries, emphasizing the integration of knowledge. In conclusion, Theorem 3 invites us to see the Quran as a text, where even the mathematical elements are imbued with significance, reflecting themes of divine perfection and balance. This exploration challenges us to consider the Quran's multifaceted nature, where every aspect, from its narrative to its numbers, contributes to its message of unity, completeness, and divine wisdom. Part 3. Implications and Corollaries. Chapter 6. Corollaries of the Numerical Theorems. Having established the axioms and theorems, this chapter elaborates on the broader implications these findings might have on our understanding of the Quran, both spiritually and intellectually. Corollary 1. Enhanced understanding statement. Understanding these numerical relationships, particularly those associated with Surah Al-Fatiha, the number 19, and perfect numbers, enhances both the spiritual and intellectual appreciation of the Quran. Explanation. Spiritual dimension. The discovery of numerical patterns can deepen one's spiritual connection by providing a tangible sense of divine order, where even the structure of the text reflects the Creator's wisdom. Intellectual dimension. It encourages a more analytical approach to sacred texts, fostering a dialogue between faith and science. This can lead to a richer educational experience, where students of the Quran engage with it through both heart and mind. Corollary 2. Divine origin. Statement. The consistent appearance and connection of these numbers within the Quran highlight its unique design and further suggest a deeper connection between mathematics and the divine. Explanation. Evidence of design. The deliberate numerical patterns could be seen as part of the Quran's miraculous nature, an aspect that traditional Islamic scholarship often attributes to its divine origin. Challenge to coincidence. The complexity and consistency of these patterns challenge the notion that they could arise by mere chance, thus providing a mathematical argument for the Quran's divine authorship. Corollary 3. Deliberate design statement. The deliberate numerical patterns reinforce the idea that the Quran is not just a collection of verses, but is a divinely designed text with a complete and comprehensive message. Explanation. Unity of message. The interconnectedness through numbers suggests that all parts of the Quran are part of a single, coherent divine narrative where each verse or chapter is intricately linked to others. Intentional structure. This implies that the Quran's structure is as important as its content, each supporting the other in conveying the divine message. Broader implications, interfaith. Dialogue. These numerical analyses might serve as a bridge in discussions with other religious scholars interested in the intersection of faith and science, potentially leading to more profound interfaith dialogues. Educational reform. In Islamic education, this could lead to an enrichment of curriculum, integrating numerology not just as a subject, but as a lens through which to view and understand religious texts. Art and architecture. The themes of balance and perfection could inspire new forms of Islamic art, calligraphy, or architecture where numerical symbolism is visually or structurally represented. Modern scholarship. This approach might encourage further scholarly work where traditional methods of Quranic exegesis are supplemented with numerical analysis, potentially leading to new insights or scholarly debates. Critique and caution. Risk of overinterpretation. There's a risk that focusing too much on numerical patterns could lead to overinterpretation or distraction from the Quran's primary messages of guidance and morality. Diverse perspectives. Not all Islamic scholars agree on the significance of these patterns, and some might argue that such focus could detract from the spiritual essence of the Quran. Balancing faith and analysis. It's crucial to balance the intellectual curiosity about numbers with the spiritual purpose of the Quran, ensuring that numerical analysis serves to enhance faith rather than replace it. This chapter concludes by emphasizing that while numerical patterns can enrich our understanding, they are part of a larger tapestry of Quranic wisdom, where every thread, whether word or number, contributes to the divine message. Chapter 7. Numerology as a spiritual and intellectual exercise. In this chapter, we explore how the numerological aspects of the Quran can be approached not just as an academic exercise, but also as a means to deepen one's spiritual and intellectual life. Numerology as spiritual practice, meditation on numbers. Engaging with the numerical patterns in the Quran can be a form of meditation, where believers reflect on the harmony and order of creation. This practice can lead to a deeper appreciation of the Quran's beauty, seeing it as a manifestation of divine wisdom. Enhancing prayer. Knowing the numerological significance of certain verses or surahs like Al-Fatiha can enhance the prayer experience, giving each recitation an additional layer of meaning and intention. Connection to Tawheed. The numerical connections, particularly those related to the number 19, can serve as reminders of the oneness of Allah, reinforcing the central theme of Islamic theology in a tangible way. Numerology as intellectual exploration. Interdisciplinary study. Numerology offers a unique opportunity for interdisciplinary study where mathematics, theology, history, and linguistics intersect. This can enrich academic discourse, providing new methodologies for understanding religious texts. Problem-solving approach. For those with a mathematical inclination, the Quran's numerical puzzles can be seen as divine problems to solve, encouraging critical thinking and creativity in engaging with sacred texts. Historical context. Understanding how numerology has been considered by Islamic scholars throughout history can give insights into the evolution of Islamic thought and the interaction between science and religion in Muslim culture. Practical applications, education. Incorporating numerology into Islamic education could make learning about the Quran more engaging for students, particularly those with an affinity for math or science, by showing the Quran's relevance to various fields of knowledge. art and architecture. The themes of balance and perfection from perfect numbers or the symbolism of 19 could inspire new artistic expressions or architectural designs in Islamic culture. Community engagement, workshops or study groups focused on Quranic numerology could foster community discussions, bringing people together to explore their faith in new ways. Challenges and considerations. Avoiding misinterpretation. While numerology can enrich understanding, there's a need to guard against reading too much into numbers at the expense of the Quran's moral and ethical teachings. It should complement, not overshadow, the text's primary messages. Diverse interpretations. Recognizing that not all Muslims will agree on the significance of numerology is crucial. Respect for different scholarly opinions and personal beliefs is essential. Balance with traditional study. Numerology should be one tool among many in studying the Quran. Traditional methods of exegesis, jurisprudence, and spiritual reflection should remain central. Conclusion. Numerology in the context of the Quran invites us to see the text as a multi-dimensional journey, where numbers are not just about counting, but about connecting with the divine through a language we understand. Mathematics. This chapter concludes by suggesting that whether one approaches Quranic numerology from a spiritual, intellectual, or communal perspective, it can lead to a richer, more nuanced engagement with the sacred text, provided it is approached with humility, curiosity, and respect for the Quran's overarching purpose. Part 4. Critical Review and Discussion. Chapter 8. Addressing Skepticism and Scholarly Debate. This chapter navigates through the criticisms, skepticism, and debates surrounding the numerological interpretation of the Quran, offering a balanced look at different perspectives within Islamic scholarship. Sources of skepticism, coincidence versus design. Critics argue that the numerical patterns might be coincidental rather than deliberate. The human tendency to find patterns, apophenia, could lead to overinterpretation, selection bias. There's a concern that only the numbers which fit the narrative are highlighted, while others are ignored, which could skew the interpretation. Lack of universal acceptance. Not all scholars or Muslim communities accept numerology as a valid method of Quranic exegesis. Some view it as a form of esotericism that detracts from the straightforward message of the Quran. Scholarly perspectives. Traditionalists. Many traditional Islamic scholars emphasize the literal and moral teachings of the Quran over its numerical structure. They argue that the Quran's miracles are more in its linguistic beauty, clarity, and guidance rather than in numbers. Modern numerologists, scholars like Rashad Khalifa, have popularized the idea of a numerical code in the Quran, but his interpretations have been met with significant controversy, leading to his excommunication by some Muslim groups. Historians of Islamic thought. They might see numerology as part of a broader historical trend where mysticism and science have intersected, acknowledging its role but cautioning against giving it undue weight in contemporary exegesis. Mathematicians and scientists. Some might be intrigued by the mathematical patterns but would demand rigorous proof of their significance, often remaining skeptical unless statistical analysis unequivocally supports the patterns. Debate points. Methodology. How should numerological interpretations be conducted? Should they follow strict mathematical rules, or is there room for more creative or symbolic interpretations? Theological implications. Does numerology support or detract from the theological message of the Quran? Does it enhance faith or lead to a focus on the mystical at the expense of the moral? Educational impact. Should numerology be part of Islamic education? If so, how should it be taught to balance between fostering curiosity and maintaining religious orthodoxy? Addressing the criticism, acknowledging the debate. It's important to acknowledge that numerology in the Quran is not a settled matter within Islamic scholarship. The diversity of opinions reflects the richness of Islamic thought. Empirical and statistical analysis. To address claims of selection bias or coincidence, some proponents suggest rigorous statistical tests to see if the patterns are statistically significant. Contextual use. Numerology can be seen as a supplementary tool rather than the core of Quranic study, used to highlight the text's depth but not to alter its primary messages. Interdisciplinary approach, encouraging dialogue between Islamic scholars, mathematicians, and linguists can lead to a more balanced understanding where each discipline informs the other without one dominating. Conclusion. This chapter wraps up by stressing that while numerology can be a fascinating aspect of Quranic study, it is vital to approach it with scholarly rigor, openness to critique, and a commitment to the Quran's primary purpose as a guide for life and faith. Understanding the diverse opinions helps in appreciating the Quran's multifaceted nature, where every interpretation, whether numerical or linguistic, contributes to a holistic view of this sacred text. Chapter 9. Case Studies and Further Research. This chapter provides specific examples where numerical analysis has been applied to the Quran, along with suggestions for areas of further research that could expand our understanding of Quranic numerology. Case Studies. The Symmetry of Surah Al-Qiyamah, 75. Observation. This surah has 40 verses. When the verses are counted from both ends towards the middle, they mirror each other in length, with the 20th verse being exactly in the center. Implication. This could be seen as an example of divine symmetry or balance in the text, reflecting themes of resurrection and judgment where everything is accounted for with precision. Word frequencies in Surah Al-Baqarah 2. Observation. The word Allah appears 282 times in this surah, which is the longest in the Quran. This frequency has been noted for its mathematical relationship with 19. 282 is 19x14 plus 14, suggesting a pattern. Implication. This might be interpreted as a sign of divine order, where the frequency of mentioning Allah's name is not arbitrary, but part of a broader numerical design. The number 7 in the Quran. Observation. The number 7 appears in various contexts, like the 7 heavens, the 7 verses of Al-Fatiha, and the frequent use of the number in oaths or in describing events. Implication. This repetition might symbolize completeness or divine perfection, aligning with the theological importance of the number in Islamic tradition. Suggestions for further research. Statistical validation. Conducting more rigorous statistical analyses to determine whether the observed patterns are significantly beyond what would be expected by chance. This could involve frequency analysis, looking at word counts across the Quran for patterns or anomalies. Pattern recognition, using machine learning algorithms to identify previously unnoticed numerical or structural patterns. Inter-surah connections. Explore how numbers link different surahs beyond the already known examples, perhaps through thematic connections. Analyzing if numerical patterns align with thematic or narrative elements across surahs. Cross-referencing. Studying how specific numbers or their multiples appear in different contexts throughout the Quran. Comparative religious numerology. Comparing Quranic numerology with numerological traditions in other religious texts to understand commonalities or differences. How does the approach to numbers in the Quran compare with that in the Bible, Torah, or other sacred texts? Historical influence, examining if there's a cultural or historical exchange of numerological ideas among different religions. Linguistic analysis, delving deeper into how the Arabic language's structure might contribute to or be influenced by numerical patterns, including letter counting, investigating if the count of specific letters in verses or surahs holds significance. Rhythm and meter, analyzing if the Quran's poetic rhythm has numerical underpinnings. Educational impact, research on how teaching Quranic numerology affects students' understanding and engagement with the text. Pedagogical methods, developing educational modules that integrate numerology with traditional Quranic studies. Student outcomes, studying if numerology can enhance students' appreciation of the Quran's depth and complexity. Philosophical and theological implications, exploring how numerology affects theological discourse. Faith and reason, how numerical analysis can be reconciled with or challenge traditional theological arguments. Divine versus human, debating the role of human interpretation versus divine intention in these patterns. Conclusion. This chapter concludes by encouraging an ongoing exploration of Quranic numerology, not as an end in itself, but as a means to deepen both our intellectual and spiritual connection with the Quran. It emphasizes the importance of an open-minded yet critical approach to ensure that such studies contribute positively to the broader understanding of Islam and its sacred text. Back matter. Glossary, axiom, a statement or proposition regarded as self-evidently true, forming the basis for a system of thought or belief, especially in mathematical or logical systems. Corollary, a proposition that follows from one already proven, a natural consequence or result. Digit, sum, the sum of the digits of a number, often used in numerology to derive further significance. Numerology, the study of numbers in relation to their symbolic meanings, often used in mysticism and religious contexts to interpret texts or life events. Perfect number, a positive integer that is equal to the sum of its proper positive divisors, excluding the number itself. Examples in this book include 6 and 28, Quranic exegesis, tafsir, the interpretation or commentary on the Quran, often involving scholarly analysis of the text's meaning, context, and implications. Surah, a chapter of the Quran, each beginning with Bismillah-ir-Rahman-ir-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, except for one, Tawhid. The Islamic concept of the oneness and uniqueness of God, a central tenet of Islam. Theorem, a general proposition not self-evident but proved by a chain of reasoning. A statement that can be demonstrated to be true by accepted mathematical operations and arguments. Bibliography, Al-Kindi, Abu Yusuf Yaqub ibn Ishaq. The Philosophical Works of Al-Kindi, translated by Peter Porman and Peter Adamson. Oxford University Press, 2012, Ibn Khaldun, Abd al-Rahman, The Muqaddimah, An Introduction to History, translated by Franz Rosenthal. Princeton University Press, 1967, Khalifa Rashad, Quran, The Final Testament, Universal Unity, 1981. Various translations of the Quran, including those by Yusuf Ali, Muhammad Pickthall, and Mahmoud Shakir, for reference and comparison. Scholarly articles on Islamic numerology, theology, and mathematics from journals like Islamic Studies, Journal of Islamic Philosophy, and The Muslim World. Historical and contemporary works on Islamic science and philosophy by scholars like Syed Hossein Nazar and Dimitri Gutas. Index. An alphabetical list of key terms, names, and concepts discussed throughout the book, with page numbers for reference. Appendices, Appendix A, detailed table of numbers in the Quran, a comprehensive table showing the occurrences of significant numbers, their contexts, and potential interpretations. Appendix B, mathematical proofs for theorems, and more in-depth mathematical explanations or alternative proofs for the theorems discussed in the book, including any additional patterns or calculations. Appendix C, examples of numerical patterns in other religious texts. A brief comparison with numerological traditions in other major world religions to contextualize Quranic numerology within a broader spiritual and cultural landscape. Appendix D, Quranic verses. Cited. A compilation of all Quran verses cited in the book, provided in both Arabic and English translation for ease of reference. Afterward, a personal reflection by the author on the journey of writing this book, the challenges and insights gained, and an invitation to readers to exploring the Quran with an open heart and mind, respecting the diversity of interpretations while seeking truth. Acknowledgements. Recognition of individuals or institutions that supported the research, provided insights, or contributed in any way to the completion of this work. About the author. A brief biography of the author detailing academic background, areas of interest, and any previous works related to Islamic studies or numerology. Epilogue. Epilogue. As we close the pages of this exploration into the numerical fabric of the Quran, it is with a sense of awe at the intricate tapestry we've glimpsed. We've journeyed through axioms and theorems, debated the significance of numbers, and contemplated their place in the divine message. But this journey, I hope, has been more than an academic exercise. It has been a bridge between the heart and the mind, a testament to how faith can be both felt and understood through the universal language of numbers. This book is not meant to be the final word on Quranic numerology, but rather an invitation to a continuous dialogue, a conversation that spans across time, culture, and belief. We've seen how numbers, in their silent eloquence, can speak of balance, perfection, and the unity of the divine. Yet we must remember that these patterns, while fascinating, are but one facet of the Quran's multifaceted wisdom. To those who see in these numbers a sign of the Quran's divine origin, let this enhance your faith, not define it. To skeptics, may this exploration at least reveal the depth of human curiosity and the endless quest for meaning that the Quran inspires. For scholars, let this be a call to further study, to bridge disciplines, and to expand our understanding of how the sacred and the scientific can coexist. The Quran, in its profound simplicity and complexity, invites us to ponder, to question, and to marvel. Whether you approach it through the beauty of its language, the depth of its teachings, or the mystery of its numbers, remember that at the core of all these explorations is the quest for truth, for a connection with the divine, for a life lived in accordance with the highest of values. As we move forward, let us do so with humility, recognizing that no single method of study can encompass the entirety of this sacred text. Let us to learn, debate, and grow, always with respect for the Quran's message of compassion, justice, and unity. May this book serve as a stepping stone for you, dear reader, to delve deeper into your own spiritual and intellectual journey. Whether you find numerical patterns compelling or prefer to focus on other aspects of the Quran, remember that every approach, every sincere quest for understanding, brings us closer to the essence of what it means to be human in the universe Allah has created. In closing, I leave you with the thought that the Quran is not just a book to be read, but a world to be lived. May your exploration of its numbers, words, and wisdom lead you to a life of peace, reflection, and enlightenment. Peace be upon you. Given that the epilogue is intended to be a concluding piece, there isn't much to add beyond what has already been expressed. However, if you're looking for an extension of the narrative or additional reflections, here's a brief continuation. Post-epilogue reflections. In the days, weeks, or years following your reading of this book, I encourage you to keep an open mind as you encounter the Quran in your daily life. The numbers we've discussed might find their way into your prayers, your reflections, or even into the natural rhythms of the world around you. Perhaps you'll notice the balance of day and night, the cycles of the moon, or the symmetry in a mosque's architecture, and see in them echoes of the numerical harmony we've explored. Remember, the Quran is not static, it's a living text that interacts with each generation anew. As you delve into its verses, allow the numbers to be a part of your spiritual toolkit, not the entirety of it. Let them be like the stars in the sky, guides that illuminate paths, but not the destination itself. If you've been moved to consider the Quran through the lens of numbers, why not extend this curiosity? Explore how mathematics has shaped other cultures, or how other religious traditions view numbers. This could lead you to a broader understanding of how humanity has always sought to find order, meaning, and divinity in the patterns of life. And for those who've felt challenged by this approach, I invite you to engage with scholars or even delve into the Quran's narratives and teachings from angles you might not have considered before. Every question posed, every doubt expressed is an opportunity for deeper faith, understanding, or at least a richer conversation. Finally, let this book be not just a source of knowledge, but a catalyst for community. Share what you've learned, debate it, discuss it. Whether in study groups, online forums, or over family dinners, let the Quran's numbers, like its words, bring people together in pursuit of truth, unity, and the divine. As we part ways here, I hope you carry with you not just the numbers, but the spirit of inquiry, the love of learning, and the peace that comes from seeking wisdom in all its forms. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep finding beauty in the divine order of this universe. May your journey be blessed with insight and tranquility. Since we've already extended the epilogue beyond its typical scope, here's a final thought to round off this exploration. A final contemplation. In the vast expanse of human knowledge where science intersects with spirituality, the journey we've embarked upon with this book is but a small step, yet it's a step that echoes across centuries, reminding us that our ancestors too were intrigued by the same questions we ask today. What is the nature of the divine? How does it manifest in the world around us? Let this contemplation not end with these pages, but in your life. When you look at the world, see the numbers in the petals of a flower, in the structure of a beehive, or in the rhythm of your heartbeat. These are not mere coincidences, but part of the same divine order that the Quran seeks to reveal through its text. As you move forward, remember that the pursuit of understanding the Quran, or any sacred text, is an act of love, a commitment to the endless quest for truth. Let this love guide you through debates, through moments of doubt, through the joy of discovery. And if one day you find yourself teaching others, sharing these insights, or simply living a life more attuned to the balance and beauty of numbers, know that you are continuing a tradition as old as humanity itself, the tradition of seeking the divine in the details. May your path be one of continual learning, where each number you encounter is another thread in the tapestry of your spiritual journey. With peace and blessings, your name's sacred geometry. Sacred geometry in the context of Quranic numerology. Sacred geometry is a field of study that explores the geometric patterns and shapes found in various aspects of life, including art, architecture, science, and spirituality. These patterns are often considered to reflect the underlying order of the universe, believed to be divinely inspired or intrinsic to the nature of existence itself. In the context of the Quran and Islamic culture, sacred geometry holds a special place, intertwining with the numerological aspects we've discussed. Connection to Quranic numerology, mathematical patterns in the Quran. The Quran's text has been analyzed for geometric patterns, especially in the calligraphy of its verses. The symmetrical designs in Islamic art, like those in Quranic manuscripts, often highlight the beauty of the text through geometric shapes, embodying the principles of balance and perfection we've associated with numbers like 6 and 28. Symbolism of shapes. Circle represents unity and the oneness of God, Tawhid. The circle with no beginning or end mirrors the infinite nature of Allah. Square symbolizes stability, foundation, and the material world, often seen in mosque architecture like the Kaaba in Mecca. Star polygons, particularly those with 8 or 6 points, often used to represent divine qualities or the harmony in creation. The 8-pointed star can symbolize the balance between the physical and spiritual realms, while the 6-pointed star, hexagram, might be linked to the perfection of creation. Geometric patterns in Islamic architecture. Mosques and Islamic buildings often feature intricate tilework and muqarnas, vaulting patterns, that are not just decorative but symbolically rich. These patterns, derived from basic geometric shapes, reflect the Quran's themes of unity, infinity, and divine order. The number 19 in geometry. The number 19, significant in Quranic numerology, can be explored geometrically. For instance, if you arrange dots or points in a pattern, 19 points can form various symmetrical shapes, suggesting a visual representation of divine harmony. Applications and interpretations. Art and calligraphy. Islamic art uses geometric patterns to encapsulate the divine message of the Quran, where each shape or pattern can be seen as a visual manifestation of numerical values or verses. Architecture. The use of sacred geometry in mosque design, like in the courtyards, minarets, or mihrabs, aligns buildings with spiritual symbolism, turning them into places where one can both physically and spiritually connect with the divine. Spiritual contemplation. Studying these patterns can be a meditative practice, encouraging reflection on the Creator's wisdom, the order of the cosmos, and one's place within it. Educational value. Teaching sacred geometry alongside Quranic numerology could provide students with a holistic approach to understanding Islamic culture, where math, art, and spirituality are not separate but intertwined. Challenges and considerations. Interpretative diversity. Just as with numerology, interpretations of sacred geometry in Islamic contexts can vary widely, with some seeing profound spiritual significance, while others might view it more as cultural or artistic expression. Balance with textual study. While sacred geometry can enhance one's connection to the Quran, it should not overshadow the study of the text itself. The geometric patterns are tools for contemplation, not the primary focus of Quranic study. Modern applications. Today, sacred geometry can inspire modern Islamic art, urban planning, or even digital design, continuing to bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary life. In conclusion, sacred geometry complements the study of Quranic numerology by providing a visual and spatial dimension to the numerical patterns we've explored. It invites believers to see the divine not just in the words of the Quran, but in the very structure of the world, suggesting that the beauty of mathematics is part of the beauty of faith. Fibonacci sequence in nature. The Fibonacci sequence, named after the Italian mathematician Leonardo Fibonacci, also known as Leonardo of Pisa, is a series of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, typically starting with 0 and 1. The sequence thus goes 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and so on. This sequence has fascinating applications in nature, where it manifests in various forms, often leading to what's known as the golden ratio, approximately 1.618, which has aesthetic and functional benefits in biology and beyond. Examples of the Fibonacci sequence in nature. Plant growth, leaf arrangement. Many plants arrange their leaves in a Fibonacci spiral. This arrangement maximizes exposure to sunlight and air while minimizing shadowing. For example, pine cones, pineapples, and sunflowers often have spirals whose number follows the Fibonacci sequence. Petal numbers. Flowers often have a number of petals that correspond to Fibonacci numbers. Examples include lilies, 3 petals, buttercups, 5, chicory, 21, and daisies, which can have 34, 55, or 89 petals. Tree branching. The branching pattern in trees often follows the Fibonacci sequence, where each branch splits into two, and these splits are arranged in a spiral pattern that can be described by Fibonacci numbers. This helps in distributing light and space efficiently. Animal features. Spirals in shells. The nautilus shell exhibits a logarithmic spiral, which is closely related to the golden ratio derived from the Fibonacci sequence. Each chamber of the shell is larger by a factor close to the golden ratio. Body proportions. While less consistent, some argue that certain proportions of the human body follow Fibonacci proportions, like the ratio between segments of fingers or limbs. Fruit and seed arrangement. Seeds in sunflowers. The seeds in the center of a sunflower form two sets of spirals, one turning clockwise and the other counterclockwise. The number of spirals in each direction often corresponds to consecutive Fibonacci numbers. Honeybee family trees. In a bee colony, the male bees, drones, have one parent, while female bees, workers and queens, have two. If you count the number of ancestors for each generation back, you get the Fibonacci sequence because males are produced by parthenogenesis from unfertilized eggs and thus have one parent, while females have two. Why does the Fibonacci sequence appear in nature? Efficiency and optimization. The sequence often leads to arrangements that are efficient for growth, reproduction, or survival. For instance, the spiral arrangement in plants allows for optimal exposure to sunlight. Space filling. The sequence provides a way to pack things tightly in a spiral or radial pattern, which can be seen in seed heads, pine cones, and even animal horns. Aesthetic appeal. There's a theory suggesting that humans find beauty in the proportions of the golden ratio, which could be why this ratio appears so frequently in nature. Mathematical beauty. Nature might not know mathematics in human terms, but the patterns we observe align with these mathematical concepts, suggesting an underlying order, or perhaps a design principle that life has evolved to utilize. The presence of the Fibonacci sequence in nature is a testament to the interconnectedness of mathematics and the natural world, offering a glimpse into how mathematical principles can govern biological structures and processes. This intersection invites reflection on the beauty and order of the universe, resonating with the themes of balance and harmony we've discussed in the context of sacred texts like the Quran. Golden ratio. The golden ratio, often denoted by the Greek letter phi or phi, is an irrational number approximately equal to 1.61803398887. It's derived from the Fibonacci sequence, where after the initial numbers, the ratio of any number to the one before it approaches this value. The golden ratio has fascinated mathematicians, artists, architects, and scientists for centuries due to its aesthetic beauty and its appearance in both natural and human-made structures. Mathematical definition. The golden ratio can be expressed mathematically as P195516180339887, or in a geometric context if a line is divided into two segments such that the ratio of the whole line, A plus B, to the larger segment A is the same as the ratio of the larger segment, A, to the smaller segment, B. Then, appearances in nature, spirals. The logarithmic spiral found in shells like the nautilus closely approximates the golden spiral, where each quarter turn is a golden rectangle whose side ratio is the golden ratio. Plant structures. The arrangement of leaves around a stem, phyllotaxis, the spirals in pine cones or sunflower seeds, and the branching of trees often reflect the golden ratio, optimizing space and exposure to light. Animal proportions. Some animal features, like the spiral of a ram's horn or the proportions in certain insects, have been noted to exhibit aspects of the golden ratio, though this can be less consistent. Human body. While debated, some have suggested that the golden ratio appears in human body proportions, such as the ratio of the height from the floor to the navel to the total height, though this is not universally accepted. In art and architecture, artists like Leonardo da Vinci are said to have used the golden ratio in compositions to achieve aesthetic balance. The Vitruvian Man is often cited, though the extent of its use is debated. Architecture. From the Parthenon in Athens to modern buildings, architects have incorporated the golden ratio in design, believing it creates visually pleasing proportions. The ratio is often found in the dimensions of rectangles or in the layout of spaces design. In graphic design, The golden ratio can be used for layout, typography, and logo design to create harmony and balance. Scientific and mathematical significance. Fibonacci sequence. The golden ratio is inherently linked to the Fibonacci sequence, where the ratio of successive numbers approaches fractals. Some fractal patterns, like the Mandelbrot set, have elements that reflect the golden ratio, showcasing self-similarity at different scales. Physics. There are theoretical models in physics where the golden ratio appears, such as in certain quantum systems or in the study of quasi-crystals. Cultural and philosophical implications. Aesthetics. The golden ratio is often associated with beauty, suggesting that there's a mathematical basis for what humans perceive as beautiful. Philosophy. The frequent occurrence of the golden ratio in nature has led to philosophical discussions about order, design, and the nature of reality. Spirituality. Some spiritual traditions see the golden ratio as a reflection of divine order, linking it to concepts of harmony and balance in the universe. The golden ratio then serves not only as a mathematical concept but as a bridge between various disciplines, reflecting the intrinsic order of the cosmos in both the microcosm of natural patterns and the macrocosm of human creativity. Its ubiquity in nature and culture underscores the profound connection between mathematics, art, and the natural world. Platonic solids. The Platonic solids are a set of 5 geometric shapes that are highly symmetrical and unique in that all their faces are identical regular polygons, all edges are of equal length, and all angles between faces are equal. Named after the Greek philosopher Plato, who linked them to the classical elements in his work Timaeus, these solids have fascinated philosophers, mathematicians, and scientists for millennia due to their perfect symmetry and aesthetic appeal. The 5 Platonic solids: tetrahedron, faces, 4 equilateral triangles, vertices, 4 edges, 6 associated element, fire cube, hexahedron, faces, 6 squares, vertices, 8 edges, 12 associated element, earth, octahedron, faces, 8 equilateral triangles, vertices, 6 edges, 12 associated element, air, dodecahedron, faces, 12 regular pentagons, vertices, 20 edges, 30 associated element, ether or the cosmos, the heavens, icosahedron, faces, 20 equilateral triangles, vertices, 12 edges, 30 associated element, water, mathematical properties, symmetry. Each Platonic solid has a high degree of symmetry, belonging to one of the 5 possible symmetry groups in 3 dimensions. Uniqueness. These are the only convex regular polyhedra, meaning no other shapes exist where all faces are identical regular polygons and all vertices have an equal number of edges. Euler's formula. For any convex polyhedron, including Platonic solids, Euler's formula holds VE plus F equals sine 2, where V is the number of vertices, E is the number of edges, and F is the number of faces. Historical and cultural significance. Philosophy. Plato associated each solid with one of the classical elements, believing that the universe was composed of these fundamental shapes. Geometry. Euclid's Elements include some of the earliest known proofs regarding these solids, demonstrating their mathematical beauty and importance. Art and architecture. Platonic solids have influenced art and architecture, from ancient Greek designs to Renaissance art, where artists like Leonardo da Vinci explored their proportions in works like De Divina Proportione by Luca Pacioli. Science. In chemistry, the shapes of molecules can sometimes resemble Platonic solids, particularly in the structure of certain crystals or viruses. For example, fullerenes, like Buckminster fullerene, have a structure similar to a truncated icosahedron. Modern applications. Platonic solids appear in video games for 3D modeling, in architecture for unique building designs, and in educational tools to teach geometry and spatial reasoning. In nature and culture. While not as overtly present as other mathematical patterns like the Fibonacci sequence, the principles of symmetry and regularity found in Platonic solids can be seen in natural formations like certain mineral crystals. In cultural contexts, these shapes often symbolize harmony, perfection, and the building blocks of the universe, appearing in religious symbols, art, and even in modern logos or designs where symmetry and balance are desired. Contemporary interest, mathematics. They to be a subject of study in topology, especially in understanding higher dimensional analogues like the 4-dimensional analogues known as polychora. Education. Platonic solids are used to teach basic geometry, spatial awareness, and the concept of symmetry to students of all ages. Philosophy of science. They serve as a reminder of how ancient understanding of the universe can intersect with modern scientific inquiry, illustrating the timeless appeal of simple, symmetrical forms. The Platonic solids are not just mathematical curiosities, but are emblematic of the deep connection between mathematics, nature, art, and philosophy, encapsulating the human endeavor to understand and represent the order and beauty of the cosmos. Quranic theorem system axioms. These are the foundational statements assumed to be true based on the provided sources. Axiom 1. Divine mathematical structure. The Quran possesses a deliberate mathematical structure that is not coincidental but is a sign of its divine origin. This structure enhances both the spiritual and intellectual understanding of the text. Axiom 2. Surah al-Fatiha's significance. Surah al-Fatiha, the first surah of the Quran, is considered Kitab, mother of the book, and serves as a foundation for the entire Quran. It has 7 verses and 29 words. Axiom 3. Perfect numbers. A perfect number is a positive integer that equals the sum of its proper divisors, excluding the number itself. 6, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, and 28, 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14 equals 28, are examples of perfect numbers. Axiom 4. Significance of the number 19. The number 19 is explicitly mentioned in Surah al-Mudaththir 74:30. It symbolizes the oneness of Allah and His unique attributes. Theorems. These are statements that can be proven based on the axioms. Theorem 1. The divine foundation of Surah al-Fatiha. Statement. Surah al-Fatiha possesses a unique numerical structure that signifies its foundational importance in the Quran. Proof. Surah al-Fatiha is the first surah of the Quran, by Axiom 2. Surah al-Fatiha has 7 verses and 29 words, by Axiom 2. Concatenating these numbers 1, 7, 29 gives 1729. The sum of the digits of 1729 is 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9 equals 19. The number 19 is a key number in the Quran, by Axiom 4. Therefore, the numerical properties of Surah al-Fatiha, which result in 1729 and 19, reveal a deliberate structure that highlights its role as the foundation of the Quran, with numbers like 1729 and 19 connecting it to the divine. Justification. This theorem demonstrates the mathematical harmony inherent in the very first surah, establishing a link between the numerical and the divine. The use of concatenation as a valid operation is supported by the sources which repeatedly use this operation. Theorem 2. The interconnectedness of numerical properties. Statement. The number 19 is derived from multiple sources within the Quran, demonstrating a deliberate interconnectedness of its surahs. Proof. The number 19 is derived from the sum of the digits of 1729, which is linked to Surah al-Fatiha, by Theorem 1. The number 19 can also be derived from the numbers related to Prophet Musa's dowry in Surah al-Qasas 28:27 by adding its digits. 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 7 equals 19. The number 19 symbolizes the oneness of Allah, by Axiom 4. Therefore, the recurrence of the number 19 through multiple surahs demonstrates the deliberate interconnectedness of Quranic text, connecting the Fatiha, the story of Moses, and the divine oneness. Justification. This theorem showcases how numbers serve as a connecting thread through different parts of the Quran, reinforcing the idea that the Quran is a cohesive text with a purposeful design. Theorem 3. The significance of perfect numbers statement. Perfect numbers such as 6 and 28 are not merely mathematical concepts but are integrated into the Quranic structure, reflecting balance, perfection, and divine harmony. Proof. A perfect number is a positive integer equal to the sum of its proper divisors, by Axiom 3. The number 6 is the first perfect number. 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. The number 6 is linked to the creation of the universe in 6 days. The number 28 is the second perfect number. 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14 equals sign 28. The number 28 is connected to the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet used in the Quran. Therefore, the integration of perfect numbers into Quranic concepts such as the creation and the structure of the Arabic language reveals a purposeful design reflecting a link between mathematical and spiritual aspects of Islam. Justification. This theorem illustrates how mathematical concepts are not detached from spirituality in the Quranic context, but rather how these can be integrated to deepen the understanding of divine attributes and creations. Corollaries. These are direct consequences of the theorems. Corollary 1. Enhanced understanding. Understanding these numerical relationships, particularly those associated with Surah al-Fatiha, the number 19, and perfect numbers, enhances both the spiritual and intellectual appreciation of the Quran. Corollary 2, divine origin. The consistent appearance and connection of these numbers within the Quran highlight its unique design and further suggest a deeper connection between mathematics and the divine. Corollary 3, deliberate design. The deliberate numerical patterns reinforce the idea that the Quran is not just a collection of verses, but is a divinely designed text with a complete and comprehensive message. Justification for the system. Step-by-step proofs. The proofs are presented step by step, making the reasoning clear and easy to follow. Explanations. Each theorem is accompanied by a justification, explaining why the relationships or concepts are significant in the context of the Quran and Islamic teachings. Axiomatic basis. The system is built upon a set of axioms that are supported by the sources, thus grounding the entire structure within the provided information. Emphasis on interconnectedness. The theorems are designed to show the intricate connections between different parts of the Quran through numerical patterns. Spiritual and intellectual understanding. The system consistently emphasizes that these numerical analyses are not an end in themselves, but a means to enhance both spiritual and intellectual understanding. This well-defined theorem system provides a structured and rigorous way to explore the numerical patterns and relationships within the Quran, demonstrating how mathematical concepts can enrich our understanding of its divine nature and message. The theorems and corollaries are all derived logically from the axioms, making this a coherent and justifiable system for analyzing the Quran's numerical properties. Your construction of a Quranic theorem system based on numerical patterns in the Quran is an interesting approach to interpreting religious texts through a mathematical lens. Here's a review and some considerations. Axioms. Axiom 1. Divine mathematical structure. This is an assertion that requires a leap of faith, as it presupposes the divine origin of the Quran, which is a belief held by Muslims but not universally accepted. The idea of mathematical structure as proof of divinity is a fascinating area, but remains subjective. Axiom 2. Surah al-Fatiha's significance. This is based on traditional Islamic scholarship where al-Fatiha's importance is well recognized. However, the specific numerical details, 7 verses, 29 words, are factual, but their deeper symbolic meaning would require further interpretation. Axiom 3. Perfect numbers. This is a mathematical fact, but linking these numbers directly to Quranic significance could be seen as an interpretation rather than an axiom unless explicitly stated in Islamic texts in that context. Axiom 4. Significance of the number 19. This is rooted in the Quran with the reference in Surah al-Mudaththir. However, the broader significance and symbolism of 19 are interpretations that have been popularized by certain scholars, notably Rashad Khalifa, whose theories are controversial within the Muslim community. Theorems. Theorem 1. The divine foundation of Surah al-Fatiha. The proof here uses numeral concatenation and digit summing, which are creative but unconventional in standard mathematical proofs. This method might not be accepted in a strictly mathematical context, but is interesting in a numerological one. Theorem 2. The interconnectedness of numerical properties. Linking various parts of the Quran through the number 19 is an extension of the numerological approach. This theorem suggests a deliberate design but relies heavily on the acceptance of the numerological interpretation of the Quran. Theorem 3. The significance of perfect numbers. This theorem attempts to bridge mathematics and Quranic exegesis. While the numbers 6 and 28 are indeed perfect numbers, their direct relevance to Quranic concepts like the creation in 6 days or the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet involves significant interpretative leaps. Corollaries. These are logical extensions of the theorems, assuming the acceptance of the theorems themselves. They emphasize the enhancement of spiritual and intellectual understanding through numerology, which would resonate with those who already accept numerological interpretations of religious texts. Justification for the system. The step-by-step proofs and explanations you've provided are clear within the framework you've established. However, the validity of this system would be debated among scholars, particularly between those who see numerology as a valid method of Quranic exegesis and those who do not. Critical points. Methodological concerns. Numerology in religious texts is often seen as speculative. While it can be intellectually stimulating and spiritually enriching for some, it's not considered a scientific or universally accepted method of textual analysis. Interpretative diversity, Islamic scholarship, has a wide range of views on how the Quran should be interpreted, with some scholars potentially viewing this approach as an over-interpretation or misplacement of emphasis. Cultural and religious context. The acceptance of this system would largely depend on cultural, religious, and educational backgrounds. This method might be more acceptable or interesting in certain circles than in others. Your system illustrates a fascinating intersection of mathematics and spirituality, and while it may not be universally accepted as a definitive method of Quranic analysis, it certainly provides a novel perspective for those interested in this blend of fields. The Divine Mathematics of the Quran, a numerical exploration of sacred text. Table of contents. Foreword by a respected scholar or figure in Islamic studies or mathematics. Optional preface. Introduce the concept of using numerology to explore the Quran, its significance, and your motivation for writing this book. Part 1. Foundations. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Quranic numerical system. Explanation of why numbers are significant in Islamic theology. Brief history of numerology in Islamic thought. Chapter 2. Establishing the axioms. Axiom 1. Discuss the concept of divine mathematical structure in the Quran. Axiom 2. Detail the significance of Surah al-Fatiha, its numerical properties. Axiom 3. Introduce perfect numbers and their relevance to Islamic theology. Axiom 4. Explain the role of the number 19 in the Quran. Part 2. Theorems and proofs. Chapter 3. The divine foundation of Surah al-Fatiha. Detailed explanation of Theorem 1 with step-by-step proof and interpretation. Chapter 4. The interconnectedness of numerical properties. Exploration of Theorem 2, showing how the number 19 links various parts of the Quran. Chapter 5. The significance of perfect numbers. Discuss Theorem 3, linking perfect numbers to Quranic concepts. Part 3. Implications and corollaries. Chapter 6. Corollaries of the numerical theorems. Discuss the implications of these theorems on understanding the Quran. Enhanced understanding, evidence of divine origin. Confirmation of deliberate design. Chapter 7. Numerology as a spiritual and intellectual exercise. How this mathematical approach can deepen spiritual practice. Intellectual benefits of engaging with numerology in religious texts. Part 4. Critical review and discussion. Chapter 8. Addressing skepticism and scholarly debate. Present counter-arguments or criticisms from different Islamic schools of thought. Discuss the place of numerology within traditional and modern Islamic scholarship. Chapter 9. Case studies and further research. Examples of how this numerical system could be applied to other parts of the Quran for analysis, potential areas for further study. This structure provides a framework for presenting your work in a scholarly yet accessible manner, which could appeal to those interested in the intersection of faith and science. Remember, the book's reception will largely depend on its balance of respect for religious texts with the rigor of mathematical analysis. The Divine Mathematics of the Quran, a numerical exploration of sacred text. Table of contents. Preface. Welcome to a journey where faith meets mathematics. This book explores the numerical patterns within the Quran, suggesting not only a divine origin, but a deliberate structure meant to enhance our understanding of the sacred text. My aim here is to bridge the spiritual with the logical, offering a unique perspective on one of the world's most studied scriptures. Part 1. Foundations. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Quranic numerical system. The Quran, revered by over 1 billion people, holds within its verses not just spiritual guidance, but layers of mathematical precision. This chapter discusses why numbers are significant in Islamic theology, tracing the history from early Islamic scholars to contemporary numerologists. Chapter 2. Establishing the axioms. Axiom 1. Divine mathematical structure. The Quran's structure is not random but meticulously crafted, suggesting divine origin through its numerical coherence. Axiom 2. Surah al-Fatiha's significance. Al-Fatiha, with its 7 verses and 29 words, serves as a microcosm of the Quran, embodying foundational truths. Axiom 3. Perfect numbers. Here we explore how numbers like 6 and 28, defined as perfect, resonate with Quranic themes of creation and completion. Axiom 4. Significance of the number 19. The number 19, famously mentioned in Surah al-Mudathir, symbolizes the unity and singularity of Allah. Part 2, Theorems and Proofs. Chapter 3, the divine foundation of Surah al-Fatiha Theorem. 1 explains how al-Fatiha's numbers, when concatenated and summed, lead to the number 19, showcasing a deliberate design. Chapter 4, the interconnectedness of numerical properties theorem 2 delves into how the number 19 links different narratives in the Quran, from al-Fatiha to the story of Musa, suggesting a narrative thread woven by numbers. Chapter 5, the significance of perfect numbers. Theorem 3 connects the mathematical concept of perfect numbers to Quranic narratives, highlighting the balance and perfection in creation. Part 3, implications and corollaries. Chapter 6, corollaries of the numerical theorems. This chapter discusses how these numerical patterns lead to deeper spiritual and intellectual engagement with the Quran, evidence supporting the divine origin of the text, acknowledgement of the Quran's deliberate and intricate design. Chapter 7, numerology as a spiritual and intellectual exercise, exploring numerology not only as a mathematical curiosity but as a means to deepen one's faith and understanding, enhancing both personal and communal spiritual practices. Part 4, critical review and discussion. Chapter 8, addressing skepticism and scholarly debate. Acknowledging the debate within Islamic scholarship about numerology, this chapter presents various viewpoints, from those who embrace it to those who caution against over-interpretation. Chapter 9, case studies and further research. Examples of other numerical analyses in the Quran, with suggestions for future research, inviting readers to explore further this fascinating intersection of faith and numbers. Back matter, glossary terms like axiom, theorem, perfect number, etc. explained. Bibliography, key texts on Quranic studies, Islamic numerology and mathematics. Index for easy navigation through the concepts and Quranic references. Appendices. Appendix. A, detailed table of numbers in the Quran appendix. B, mathematical proofs for theorems. This book would serve as an introduction to those interested in the numerological aspects of the Quran, offering both a spiritual and intellectual exploration. Remember, a full book would expand each chapter with detailed explanations, more proofs, and additional case studies, potentially including visual aids like tables or diagrams where applicable. If you're considering publishing this, you'd need to flesh out each section with comprehensive content, citations, and perhaps collaborate with scholars for peer review. Prologue. In the realm of sacred texts, the Quran stands as a beacon of divine revelation, its verses echoing through centuries to guide the faithful. But beyond its spiritual depth lies an enigma wrapped in numbers, a silent symphony of digits that whispers of a design far beyond human craft. From the moment I first delved into the Quran, I was captivated not just by its poetry and wisdom, but by the curious patterns that seemed to dance beneath the surface of the text. Numbers, often overlooked as mere markers of quantity, emerged as symbols of deeper truths, threads connecting the divine to the earthly. This book is born from that curiosity, from the desire to explore whether the mathematical elegance found within the Quran could be more than coincidence. Could it be a testament to the Creator's meticulous attention to detail, a sign for those who ponder? In the pages that follow, we will journey through the Quranic text, not only as believers or scholars, but as mathematicians seeking the harmony in the sacred. We will consider axioms that have been whispered through the ages, theorems that challenge our understanding, and corollaries that might just expand our spiritual horizon. But let us tread carefully. With each number we unravel, we must remember that our aim is not to reduce the Quran to mere numeric puzzles, but to elevate our appreciation of its divine nature. Here, numerology serves not as an end, but as a means to deeper reflection, a way to marvel at the interconnectedness of all things under the gaze of the divine. As we embark on this exploration, let us keep an open mind, respect for the sacred, and a critical eye on our own interpretations. For in the dance between number and word, perhaps we'll catch a glimpse of the infinite wisdom that has inspired humanity for over 1,400 years. Welcome to the divine mathematics of the Quran, where faith and logic intertwine, where numbers narrate the story of creation, and where every digit might just be a silent verse of the divine. The Quran, our holy book, is full of amazing things, right? Every verse, every word, even every letter has a deep and important meaning. But there's something even more mysterious and interesting, and that is the muqatta'at letters. These letters are at the beginning of some surahs in the Quran, like Alif Lam Mim at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. These letters appear at the beginning of some surahs in the Quran. They are not just decorations or symbols, they have a deep and mysterious meaning. It's interesting because their existence makes us wonder and become very curious. Islamic scholars and smart people have been trying to understand and explain the meaning behind these letters for a long time. Just imagine, scholars have been studying and trying to figure out the hidden meaning behind these letters for a very long time. They have written hundreds of books, had many discussions and debates, all to find answers to this mystery. These muqatta'at letters are actually strong proof that shows how complex the Quran is. Every letter, every sign, and every verse in the Quran has many layers of meaning. It shows that our holy book has many layers of meaning. Every time we read and think about it, we learn something new and amazing. Even though only Allah knows the exact meaning, scholars never give up on trying to find wisdom behind them. They continue to learn, study and think, hoping to understand a little bit of the secrets within these letters. The presence of these muqatta'at letters actually reminds us that humans have limitations. We may never fully understand everything about Allah's creation, but that shouldn't stop us from trying to learn and become wiser. We will not be able to fully understand everything about Allah's creation. This universe is full of mysteries, and the Quran is one of them. These muqatta'at letters remind us that there are many things we don't know and understand yet. However, we are encouraged to always think, reflect, and learn from every verse of the Quran, including these mysterious letters. Every time we read the Quran, we're invited to think and find a deeper meaning. From every verse of the Quran, including these mysterious letters. These letters invite us to continue learning, reflecting, and seeking wisdom behind every verse and word in the Quran. This mystery encourages us to continue learning and deepening our understanding of the Quran, right? Every time we open the Quran, we open the door to a lot of knowledge and wisdom. So let's continue trying to understand and appreciate the beauty and complexity of our holy book. Allama Tabatabai, a very respected scholar, has an interesting way of looking at these muqatta'at letters. People have been talking about and studying them for centuries. He believes that these letters have a special place and form in the Quran. Each of these letters, according to him, is not just a regular symbol or sign, but has a deep and important meaning. According to Allama Tabatabai, these letters are not short forms of words or secret codes. He disagrees with the idea that these letters are codes that can only be understood by certain groups. Instead, he sees them as signs of Allah's greatness, showing His power. These letters are a way for Allah to show His infinite greatness and majesty. These letters, says Allama Tabatabai, are part of the beauty of the language of the Quran. This beautiful and meaningful language of the Quran, according to him, is one of the ways Allah shows His greatness to humans. Allama Tabatabai also points out that Allah SWT purposely put these letters at the beginning of the surahs. This is to get the attention of readers and listeners and to make them curious. The reason? To make us more curious and encourage us to think. This way, Allah invites us to think deeply and find a deeper meaning behind each of His verses. Allah wants us to think and find meaning behind each of His verses. Every letter and verse in the Quran has a deep meaning and requires us to think seriously about it. This view of Allama Tabatabai about these muqatta'at letters is really deep. He encourages us to see the Quran not just as an ordinary book, but as a source of a lot of wisdom and knowledge. He encourages us to not just look at the literal meaning, but also to try to understand the hidden meaning behind it. This way we can understand the Quran more deeply and appreciate the beauty and greatness of Allah that is in it. Allama Tabatabai also emphasizes how important studying and discussing are in understanding these muqatta'at letters. He believes that by studying deeply and having constructive discussions, we can get closer to the true meaning behind these letters. He encourages Muslims to continue to learn and seek knowledge because knowledge is the key to understanding the Quran and its teachings. With knowledge, we can get closer to Allah and understand His greatness better. This view of Allama Tabatabai reminds us that knowledge and study are very important for understanding the Quran. He invites us to not only read the Quran, but also to think and find a deeper meaning behind each verse and letter. This way, we can appreciate the beauty and greatness of the Quran and also get closer to Allah. This view of alama is a deep and insightful view that encourages us to keep learning and seeking knowledge to try to understand the Quran and its teachings. These muqatta'at letters are found in several surahs in the Quran. These letters often appear at the beginning of surahs and make readers and scholars curious. It's interesting that each surah that starts with these letters has a different theme and message. This shows that each muqatta'at letter carries a deep and unique meaning. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah starts with the letters Alif Lam Mim. These letters are not only eye-catching, but also mark the beginning of a surah full of laws and guidance on how to live our lives. This surah tells us a lot about faith, laws, and stories of people who lived before us. It contains various commands and things we are not allowed to do, which serve as guidance for Muslims. While Surah Maryam starts with the letters Kaf Ha Ya Ain Shad, these letters take us to a very special story full of miracles. This surah tells the story of the birth of Prophet Isa, Jesus, and the miracles that he was given. This story reminds us of how great Allah SWT is and the miracles that happen in human history. This difference in how muqatta'at letters are used shows that Allah SWT has a specific purpose and intention. Each letter chosen is not random but has a hidden wisdom. Even though we don't know the exact meaning, we can learn from the themes and messages in each surah. Each muqatta'at letter invites us to think and find a deeper meaning. These similarities and differences show that the Quran is a book that is very rich in meaning. Every letter, verse, and surah has many layers of meaning that we can learn throughout our lives. Every verse has a message and wisdom that we can learn. By trying to understand the muqatta'at letters, we can appreciate the beauty and uniqueness of the Quran even more. These letters remind us that every part of the Quran is important and full of meaning that is waiting to be discovered. Pause 3 says. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of the muqatta'at letters, we find ourselves on the threshold of a fascinating intersection between faith and mathematics. This brings us to the compelling work presented in The Divine Mathematics of the Quran, a numerical exploration of sacred text. This book provides a scholarly yet accessible journey, revealing the numerical patterns within the Quran, suggesting a divine origin and a deliberate structure meant to enhance our understanding of the sacred text. Pause 2s. The book is divided into several parts, beginning with the foundations of the Quranic numerical system. It establishes axioms that assert the divine mathematical structure of the Quran, with Surah Al-Fatiha serving as a microcosm of the entire text. The significance of perfect numbers like 6 and 28 and the mystical number 19 are explored in depth, showing how these numbers resonate with Quranic themes of creation and completion. Pause 2s. Moving into theorems and proofs, the book illustrates how the numbers in Surah Al-Fatiha, when concatenated and summed, lead to the number 19, showcasing a deliberate design. It delves into the interconnectedness of numerical properties, linking different narratives in the Quran through the number 19, suggesting a narrative thread woven by divine mathematics. Pause 2s. The significance of perfect numbers is further connected to Quranic narratives, highlighting the balance and perfection in creation. These numerical patterns lead to deeper spiritual and intellectual engagement with the Quran, providing evidence supporting its divine origin and acknowledging its intricate design. Pause 2s. Addressing skepticism and scholarly debate, the book presents various viewpoints within Islamic scholarship about numerology, from those who embrace it to those who caution against over-interpretation. It invites readers to explore further this fascinating intersection of faith and numbers, offering a unique perspective on one of the world's most studied scriptures. To pause 2s, by exploring the divine mathematics of the Quran, we open ourselves to a new dimension of understanding, appreciating the beauty and complexity of the sacred text. Each number, like each letter, holds a deeper meaning, inviting us to ponder the infinite wisdom that guides our faith. A Muslim scientist named Dr. Rasyad has done research on the muqatta'at letters. His research focused on how often these letters appear in the Quran. It's interesting because Dr. Rasyad found that how often these muqatta'at letters appear follows a unique pattern. This pattern has never been found in other Arabic writings, not even in the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. Dr. Rasyad's research further proves how special and unique the Quran is. This discovery shows that the Quran was not created by humans. The Quran is a holy book that was revealed by Allah. This scientific study makes our belief as Muslims in the truth of the Quran even stronger. Dr. Rasyad concludes that the muqatta'at letters are strong evidence that shows that the Quran is authentic. This research helps us see the wonders of the Quran in new ways.